And then also in terms of the theme of the first issue, basically early COVID, after a decade in a monogamous relationship, I found myself in a poly four-person relationship raising two kids. So it's one thing to have sort of thoughts about family and sexuality that are maybe outside the mainstream, that are very abstract, but then those ideas became much less abstract. um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, and it's eye-opening, and I don't know anyone else in a relationship like mine, but I'm secretly an incorrigible gossip, so I wanted to talk to people in all sorts of different kinds of relationships and explore that line of thought, because you realize as soon as you come out as something, not cishet, people behave in all sorts of funny ways towards you.
Today on the show, we are joined with writer and filmmaker Nora Rosenthal. And this week, Nora's about to release her new magazine titled RatChat, and that will be available all across North America and Europe. Very exciting times. It celebrates life, sexuality, raw, honest stories, and we think that's just awesome. It kind of coincides with this show, so this was great to have Nora on today. Pick her brain about the first issue and how this magazine came to be. So without any further ado, we're going to get right into this great talk. And here is Nora of RatChat.
Hi, Sean. How you doing?
Oh, great. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks.
Awesome, awesome. Exciting week for you.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
we launch on Friday, so
Oh, that's amazing. I kind of got the synopsis of what RatChat is. It's seems awesome, like just a provocative like lifestyle, a little erotic type of magazine going on. I kind of want to pick your brain of how this came to be.
yeah, absolutely. Oh, so many reasons. Not least of all, I spent the last decade in Montreal, so everyone I'd collaborated with as a writer, as a filmmaker, were based there. So I really wanted a project so I could, keep in touch with friends. All of a sudden, I'd moved to Ontario, and it was, the midst of COVID, and I desperately needed both a project, but a way of staying connected to those people, and also of, meeting people in Ontario and elsewhere, and just, reaching out a little farther than my immediate circle. Um, yeah, and
That's awesome.
I think I ended up emailing, everyone I knew, and even vaguely, and everyone said yes, that they wanted to do something, which kind of stunned me, and here I am.
Oh, that's so cool. That's kind of like how this podcast started as well too. It
Neat.
was something to just build a community around my friends, and it's amazing how sometimes planting that seed can grow to something bigger than maybe you expected or beyond that. As I was reading up on this too, it's like this is going to be published not only like in Canada but across North America and Europe as well. Am I right?
Yeah, somehow, yeah, I have a magazine distributor, so Magazine Heaven in the UK. So they've got a big flagship store in London, England, but then they're the UK's largest distributor of indie magazines. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. And
It's funny
yeah.
being introduced to sort of the ancient world of, like, magazine distribution, because they all travel by freight. So, they'll be in Australia 35 days from now.
Yeah, that's something like a whole industry I have no idea about. So that's very interesting to almost like hear about how these things get distributed around and stuff. So do they get printed in Canada and then you push them out, or
I printed some in Canada, and then I
yeah.
printed some in the UK. Uh,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, and I heard like you have like the whole background of being a filmmaker as well too. Is the type of films you make connected in a way of this kind of content you're producing?
No, no, barely. I'm a producer of music videos. I mean, in the sense of, like, I make movies about my family. I'm actually producing a movie about my family right now. So yes, there is some connection, but I think more than anything, it's just this, I don't know, a perverse desire to be in charge of an artistic project and ultimately to blame if anything goes wrong. That's exactly what a film producer is. No one really knows what you do, but if anything goes wrong, it's your name on a piece of paper. You're to blame. But
Yeah.
there is this thrill of sending something out into the world.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And yeah, you mentioned like this kind of spawned from your community in Montreal. Can you kind of tell me a bit more about that and the
Yeah,
seeds
definitely. I
that's
mean,
planted for this?
for sure. I mean, I was the arts and culture editor at Cult Montreal. So I got to interview artists about their practice. I got to review shows, and then all of a sudden that evaporated. So I really missed people. I just missed chatting with people. It's fun. My nickname is Rat, so Rat Chat is just me reaching out to chat to people of all ilk. And there's nothing I won't talk about either. So I want this to be really a cultural free for all, but the things that are important to me. So art, filmmaking, sex, family, humor, politics. There's even sports, um, and then also in terms of the theme of the first issue, basically early COVID, after a decade in a monogamous relationship, I found myself in a poly 4-person relationship raising 2 kids. So, it's one thing to have sort of thoughts about family and sexuality that are maybe outside the mainstream, that are very abstract, but then those ideas became much less abstract. um,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, and it's eye-opening, and I don't know anyone else in a relationship like mine, but I'm secretly an incorrigible gossip, so I wanted to talk to people in all sorts of different kinds of relationships and explore that line of thought, because you realize as soon as you come out as something, not cishet, people behave in all sorts of funny ways towards you immediately.
Yeah,
uh,
I can imagine. And even that's interesting to me. And I think this is great that you're putting together this magazine and telling stories like that too, because I find like sometimes you come across like these people are, I guess, traditionalists, and they almost live life like they think there's like a template of how you have to be with like your relationships. And it's just, I think it's a beautiful thing of like people just kind of going with the flow of what feels natural and works for them. And like you mentioned, your relationship was just very unique, and I don't think I've met somebody in that position as well too. But yeah,
yeah,
it's great to
me
tell that
neither.
story. Yeah.
Me neither. And I would never presume. There's no model that functions for everybody, but I would say that many people do presume that there's a model that works for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes they'll push it through whatever, like media or religion and so many different things too. It's almost like their agenda of trying to make everybody the same of what they're comfortable with, instead of being open to everybody just being a different, unique individual. And that's one thing I love about the show. I like to celebrate that, and it's cool to have you on and like pick
Thanks
your
for
brain
having
about
me.
the magazine. Yeah, no problem. And in the magazine too, you're telling other people's stories who are in
Absolutely.
unique situations as well?
So yeah, I see there's sort of a series of love stories that I see as being pretty central to the inaugural issue. So there's our cover stars, I guess, Eileen and Wendy. Um, these wonderful women. They're both in their 50s. Eileen's an esthetician. She has a nail salon. Wendy is a geologist. Um, and Eileen had never been with a woman before, but developed this really intense bond, intense friendship, and then over the course of COVID, this became this wonderful love story. And it was my designer, Hugo Dufour, who initially told me I should reach out to the photographer Ariana Molly about some of her past work. But as soon as we got to speaking, she said, "Well, my mom has this beautiful relationship." So she photographed her mom and Wendy, and you can really see that rapport. You can see that ease uh, there, and just her.
Yeah.
You would never guess that they're not routinely models.
That's great. Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing. And to and even to celebrate something like that, where it's just like true love and natural and everything, and to have these stories just be published as well. Do you find like have you ever approached somebody who does have like a story you wanted to cover, and maybe they were a bit shy of sharing it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of reticence. They, for instance, I mean, they're going by their first names. My partners are also going by their first names because we also appear in the magazine. Yeah, there's this. there's always a sense of outedness in different worlds, and you come up against different challenges as soon as you make a leap of exposing yourself in some way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. And I find like, or you mentioned like you this kind of spawned while you were living in Montreal. Do you find like Montreal is just a little more open to these kind of subjects as well?
Oh, I mean, I would say so. Maybe it spawned as soon as I left.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
um yeah, I think there's a different, for lots of different reasons. There's a different culture, especially in Montreal. Especially people are able to work a little bit less at their day jobs, and they're able to explore an artistic career that might not be remunerated in the same ways, and that just leads to a different series of priorities at the end of the day.
Yeah, facts. And yeah, even like just visiting there too, there's just seems there's a different energy in the air or something. Like I live in Toronto right now, and it's, I don't know, like there is like art does get celebrated here too, but it's also, I feel like maybe not for everybody, but in my path there's always been like a heavy business model beside it too, and sometimes they try to water it down in a way or try to play it a little too safe instead of just kind of embracing like beautiful weirdness in a way. Or
Yeah, I think there's definitely some truth to that. Yeah,
yeah.
one of my favorite contributors to this issue, Caroline Desilets, her project is so remarkable. It's called Watch Me Dad, Watch Me. And she which is a reference to a larger body of work about this desire for attention, and never having known her father. But just as a writer and a photographer, she just takes no prisoners. There is something so blunt and remarkable about this project. So she describes it as sexuality and maternity coexisting. Here, I'll just quote from, as she puts it: "In my bed, one night a mother, one night a sex being. The proximity is too weird to talk about." And she's really tackling the taboo of a woman who is, 1 week she's a mom and she's devoted to being a mom, and then the next week there's this existential split, um, uh, and this become central to her character and to her identity, but that that you never hear about. People are,
Mhm.
it is such a taboo, and there is such an idea that women especially are being bad parents if they get to still explore their sexuality and still have a sex life, that they're somehow not giving enough of themselves. And to even talk about that, I think is a big leap.
Yeah, for sure. And even like I find too in North American media in a way too, like you mentioned the word taboo, where it's interesting how people are almost scared to, or I wouldn't say not all people, I can't generalize all people, but like when you watch like television or whatever, it's almost like sex is like a big no, like on cable television. But then they'll switch to like, you'll be watching a movie and you can see people getting like murdered in an action movie or whatever. It's like, why is that okay? But something like so natural as like what brings life in all of us together and our internal like instincts, like something that we're supposed to be buried in. I think that's cool, like with your project too, just being open about it too. And I think that's just healthy for just humanity in general, to just be open and talk about these things.
Yeah, I hope so. It's funny that, yeah, that idea of, sex and violence in the media is central to one of my conversations too, with the filmmaker Issa Ben. You're Toronto based. Maybe you know her just from being in that milieu. She's a filmmaker, um, and she really, yeah, she talks about how uh, her parents were deeply passionate people. They argued about everything, but the idea of, whether or not she got to, as a young Black woman, watch sex on TV or watch violent TV became this like central debate in her household of like immense philosophical importance. Um,
Mm.
but she also, our conversation, or I see our conversation as being sort of emblematic as what I want RatChat to achieve more broadly, because she talks about this sort of African cultural idea where you talk about everything, where you can disagree with somebody, maybe even profoundly, but you can politely discuss with them, and how that's something that we as Canadians really fail to do. How we sort of
Yeah.
very politely obfuscate. That's our model. We obfuscate and silence.
Yeah, true. Even like I find too more recently to some people, they get to the point where they don't want to have the discussion at all, or if they're something they don't agree with, like instead of like exploring and maybe just discussing and maybe both sides learning, it's almost like, oh, I don't agree with that, canceled. I'm gonna be vocal about that. It's like, no, it's just, instead of having like a mature conversation about like maybe why is somebody more open about this and that, and I don't know if I'm making sense right now, but it's I feel like I've been seeing like that kind of behavior more often than I did in the past. In a way, I don't know what it is, but
we're out of practice. We haven't seen enough people outside our immediate social circle.
Yeah,
So
that's true, and that's what I think is cool about like you publishing this as well too. It is bringing different ideas, and maybe somebody can randomly pick up this magazine and learn something that they've never even thought about too, and just different lifestyles and all that.
yeah, no, I sincerely think there is something for everyone. That the whole idea is that it's a place where all subjects are welcome. Um, that even for people who don't want some of the more purient stuff, that we have an exploration of fashion and gender and motorsports. And then there's another photo essay about, the place where immigrant cultural identity and non-binary identity kind of interlink. There's an essay about internet chat room dynamics and how those bleed into our lives. There's humor. There's a Toronto comedian, Nick Nemiroff, who's great. He was nominated for a Juno this past year, and he's got a
Oh
series of
wow.
one-liners that he contributed. It was very important for me that if we're going to have a very serious cultural dialogue about lots of things, that there should still be room for levity, that there should really be room for everything, and set up a model for subsequent issues where there's always a little bit of sport and there's always a bit of humor and there's always a bit of sex, but that everything is somehow also, that is politically motivated a little bit, that it's erotic and that it's interesting and that it's fun.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like this magazine is just stacked with content too. How much time did it take to put together this first one?
Since the beginning of the summer.
Oh, okay,
the,
yeah.
the, the initial emails were sent, I'd say early summer.
Yeah, and were you working on this before you knew you can get it published all over the place? Was it the project first, or did you get the opportunity first? And then,
No, it just began.
oh, I love that.
Just coalesced.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
intuition. I need to do this too.
And
Even
now I'm
yeah.
sitting in a room with boxes.
Yeah, that's so funny too. It's like I mentioned earlier, it's like it sounds like how the podcast spawned as well. And it's like I never wanted to be a radio host or whatever. It was just kind of having a community of artists around me with untold stories that I wanted to tell. And like you mentioned, you got boxes around you. I turn around, all of a sudden I got a green screen, a microphone. It's like how it like almost happened like unconsciously in a way where people it's almost hard to talk about when people are like, oh, how did this come to be? It's just like I just felt like it, like I needed to do this. Do you feel like it was just something in your heart that you just needed to do and put out there? And
Yeah, I think it made sense. Just made sense in lots of ways. And even as a freelance writer, I think on some level I wasn't getting the foothold for the stories I wanted to tell, for the people, not necessarily even my own stories, but for people I wanted to interview, for instance. So, and I guess it's a bit of a cliche to create your own platform, but it is also an effective way of, of just doing it, of just going for it.
yeah. And how freeing is that feeling of just going for it?
Oh, I don't know if it's freeing.
Oh, okay, yeah. But like I kind of say that because I was used to working for different people and like doing different videography stuff. And again, this kind of spawned of me just being like, I need to do my own thing. And even though it's like, it might not be on the level of some of the people I were working for, it's kind of
Mhm.
starting at the beginning. I remember just starting this out and just having such like a warm feeling of like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do,
Mhm.
with like you mentioned, like you doing like interviews of maybe it's not somebody you selected or whatever, you're kind of doing it for a job.
No, it's true. It is exhilarating that all of a sudden, that that you're beholden. It's yeah,
Yeah.
it's exhilarating when the buck stops at you. When you've selected this lineup of people, there's a way of you've introduced them to one another, even if not personally, then they've discovered one another's work as a result. Yeah, you can feel that a community can arise around something like this, around a cultural object, if be that a film or be that a magazine, that there is a reverberation that happens after the fact, and that I think will as we move forward too.
Yeah, for sure. And like I hope people hear your story too, because I know so many people like in different communities, and maybe they have something special around them, but it's not like really being documented. Like whether like I see little pockets of like I talk to a lot of artists on here, whether it's like comedy or little pockets of like different music scenes and stuff like that. And maybe they'll go out and do all these shows, but it's cool to have like, I don't know, maybe somebody who's passionate and in the circle to kind of tell these stories, and almost like what you're doing with your magazine and everything. And I hope people like hear and see what you do, and maybe somebody gets inspired to do that in their circle too, because I think there's just so much like little beautiful like art scenes that aren't being showcased around right now.
No, it's true. And I think I really too wanted to combat that echo chamber that can happen, especially in pandemic season. But
Hmm.
which you only hear from people who are very similar to you, and you only listen to those people, and you only consume culture from people who are very much like you. And the idea that you can find a really quite a diversity of viewpoints in one place, and use that as a jumping off point.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, this it's Friday, right? You're having like a little release party as well,
It
or?
is at the Textile Gallery, 100% Silk. I don't know if you know it, on Queen West.
Oh, that's exciting. So are you gonna
Mhm.
be like selling magazines and having a little get
Absolutely.
together?
Yeah,
Wicked,
from
wicked.
7 p.m. till 11 p.m.
Oh, great.
Big old stack of magazines.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to get this episode out before the other ones I recorded, because that's in a few days. But yeah, that's great. And if anybody's in the Toronto area, definitely go check that out. It sounds cool, and I'm gonna try to make it out as well.
Thank you. I hope it's see you in person.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be awesome.
I will say
Yeah.
the best way to reach me too is probably on Instagram at RatChatMag.
Okay, yeah, yeah, definitely. And when we release the episode as well, we'll have links to everything. And
Fantastic.
yeah, yeah. So it seems like this first issue took a lot of time to put together. Are you currently working on the second one now, and
I
or are you?
am. It's funny, I've been There are some people I'm interested in interviewing, some people who for whatever reason were busy for this one, or some people I've been lucky enough to encounter,
Yeah.
for issue two. But yeah, things are coming together.
uh,
Little by little, just the very opening phases. I need to get this one out in the world first.
yeah, for sure, one step at a time too. But yeah, just kind of hearing about it too. Like I've never put together a magazine, but just hearing you speak about it seems like it's a lot of work, and it's almost like never ending, just piecing together these stories in a way.
You're not wrong. But
Hmm.
no, it's a really exciting lineup, and I imagine future lineups will have less of a personal connection. I won't be, my own face appears in this one,
Hmm.
because my friend, the photographer Christopher Wall, when I approached him and asked him what his contribution was going to be, he said he wanted to come and photograph me and my partners. So there, there,
Yeah.
there you have it. Um, uh, but for for subsequent issues, there'll be a little bit more, distance personally.
Yeah, that's exciting too. Even I'd love to pitch you somebody too. I actually had this person on. He was my first episode, and I had him on multiple times on this podcast. But he used to go like his name used to be Mindbender Supreme as a rapper, and then years like maybe like about 5 years ago, he pursued a career in porn, and actually like started winning all these awards for like feminist porn. Like it's very like
Oh, neat.
sensual, and it's like he's the one of the most unique and openly sexually people I've ever met in my life. And if you ever wanted to hear his story or whatever, I can
Yeah,
connect you with
send
him.
him my way.
Yeah, he seems like he's just perfect for this magazine. And again, it's like another person's story who's not being told, who's just very like unique and has like the biggest heart and just kind of like walking their own path. And it seems like that's what your magazine is kind of portraying, just people just on their own path and doing what they feel is right in their heart, no matter how unique and different it is.
Yeah, I think stories are always interesting for their specificity, not for all the ways in which you can generalize them to be like you or like somebody else. But something that's just highly particular is always of interest.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I just want to say kudos on putting this together. Like it just sounds like something special, and I hope it's all the success. Like it's so great that it's not only just being shared like just in Canada, going all over the place too. So once again, people, if you want to check this out, check out RatChat. And yeah, anything else you want to say before we take off, Nora?
No, I'm looking forward to hearing from people. I'm looking forward to people reading the magazine and reaching out to me, hoping to contribute or otherwise just, reach out.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so follow her, keep in touch. If you're in Toronto, go see or go check out the release on Friday. And yeah, we'll have all the details on the webpage and Instagram of this episode. So yeah, once again, so nice to meet you, and hope I can see you Friday.
Yeah, I hope to meet you.
I believe I got the evening off. I'm kind of like working till like around like 7ish or so I should be rolling in later. Yeah yeah, but thank you so much for your time again, and I'll see you then.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks so much.
Hope you enjoyed this episode with Nora Rosenthal. And like we mentioned, the launch party is this Friday, October 15th at 100% Silk in Toronto, Ontario. The address is 1190 Queen Street West. And I'm going to pop in and grab one of these magazines. Also, if you want to follow Nora, her Instagram is infrared_crayfish. Dope name. I should have asked her about that. That sounds very interesting. And to follow the official magazine, it's at RatChat Mag. So do it up, support awesome content and honest media. And speaking of people who support awesome content and honest media, before we go, we got to thank all you legends on the Patreon. And first up, the biggest thanks to our co-producer, Jeremy Hopkin of Hopkin Design, the Queen, Ola Mazuka of Sonic Fold, Ryan Watkins of Ryan Radio, Amanda McKnight of Top 10 Nerd, Pat Maloney, Ryan Campbell, Daniel San, Drew Stewart, Devin Staple, Mike Ulio, David Carney, Jared Pepper Bronstein, aka Mr. Spicy, and last but not least, Francis Copper, aka my mom. Thank you all, and if you want to support, get episodes early, and get a shout out at the end of each and every episode, you can check out patreon.com/The Creative Imbalance. Thank you so much for listening. We got a lot of great episodes coming over the next few weeks, and we'll catch you next time. Yeah!